Welcome back to A Lifetime of Mafia Tales. Sal and I talk about the third Mafia hitman Sal was very close to. The name of the hitman was Tommy DeSimone. A lot of people that follow the Mafia know who Tommy DeSimone was, but for the people that don't, Tommy was one of the main characters that was portrayed in the movie Goodfellas. Tommy was known for killing quite a few people, even people that weren't even criminals at all. Another thing that Sal brings up today is him doing a few heists with Tommy and a few other mobsters. The last topic we cover in this episode is how and why Tommy DeSimone was killed. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to get more content from us. Please subscribe to our Patreon channel if you want to be a part of our exclusive community. And without further ado, let's get into this episode. One quick thing before we get started with this podcast. This episode is just half of it. The rest of it's on Patreon. If you want to get our full podcast, please subscribe to our Patreon channel. Our Patreon channel link is in the video description below. All right, everyone. Welcome back. How you doing today, Sal?
Good.
Well, good to hear, man. I'm excited for this episode. This is going to be a really interesting one about the third hitman that we're covering now, Tommy DeSimone. Last week we did John Gotti. The week before that we did, the first week we did John Gotti, and then the second week Dominic Cataldo, and this is number 3. So right. I'm really excited for this one. This is going to be really good. There's a lot of stories and theories on Tommy. I mean, the way that we can talk about this is I'll give a little brief background on what I did and what I researched, and you can tell me whether or not it's BS or kind of accurate. So I'll go into it right now. So Tommy, he had family growing up that was in the mob. His grandfather was Rosario and his uncle was Frank, and they were part of the Los Angeles crime family. Tommy's brothers were Robert and Anthony. They were both associates of the Gambino family. Does that sound correct to you?
Right.
Okay.
Well, yeah, they were.
And then his mentor, of course, was Jimmy Burke, and then that was his mentor in the Mafia. Jimmy brought him into the Lucchese crew with Paulie Vario as their capo, and Tommy would report to Jimmy because he wasn't made yet at that point, and Jimmy couldn't get made either because he was half Italian, I believe. Right. He wasn't full. Okay. So then, Tommy, and then, with Tommy as well, he was, crazy. He was a hitman. There was a killer. And even in Henry Hill's book, I believe he said that they didn't get rid of him. They wanted him around because he was a great earner. He made the money despite being crazy and reckless with killing multiple people. And right. The ones that were reported were like Billy Batts, Michael Spider. He also killed a man named Stanley, and even Henry Hill even said that Tommy was trying to make a move on his wife or somewhat trying to rape her. And so I don't know if that to be true or not, but that was another thing that was going on. But I mean, Tommy was definitely crazy, man. And I mean, you were really close with him, and he ultimately had his demise. And there's a lot of different theories out there. So I think that's kind of a good background to give about Tommy. So where do you fit into all this? When did you meet him?
So I'm going to talk about the Tommy I met in 1971, and then the Tommy that I was crime partners with in 72 and 73 and 74. And then I'm going to talk about the Tommy that I recognize who evolved into a sick, demented, vicious, treacherous killer.
Right.
But that wasn't the Tommy I met in 1971, because he came to the Sinatra Club around Christmas time with Jimmy Burke. And a few months later, when I met Foxy at the same time, there had to be a sit down between Paulie Vario and Jimmy Burke, had to vouch for Tommy, and then John Gotti and Angelo vouching for Foxy. And then Cataldo, I believe he took Joe Pegleg Brancato to meet Paulie Vario and said, these 3 guys want to work together. They want to be crime partners. We need permission, because that's the way it was back then. You had to get permission to steal with somebody. It's kind of strange when I think back. Oh, my God, I had to get permission. And if I was going to go to jail, I didn't get their permission not to go to jail.
No.
So, yeah. So it came about that we were, authorized to work together, the 3 of us. And Tommy would come to the Sinatra Club to play poker, but he was a terrible poker player. He wasn't a good card player in In contrast to Jimmy Burke, who was an amazing card player. He was probably the best gambler I ever met in my life. Sharp as a tack, amazing photographic memory. He tried to school Tommy in a lot of ways. But what I can say about Tommy was, yes, he was impulsive. He was unpredictable. At times, he was grandiose. Okay. So I was a couple of years older than him. And when I decided that I wanted to do a robbery, I would give him all the details. And he never brought a score or a robbery to me. But I came up with ideas and I said, look, this is the details of what we got to do and you got to follow. And Foxy agreed. I let Obots plan it all out. And I was always the driver of the hot car. And Tommy loved to jump out of the car, flash his guns, 2 guns in the middle of the street while we were doing these hijackings, okay? So, the first couple of hijackings we did, we went out and did those without any problems. And Jimmy Burke eventually became the sole buyer. I mean, Danny Fatico, Gotti's guys, they couldn't compete with Jimmy Burke's price. If we did a truckload of garments, Jimmy would offer us 60 or 80,000. The Gotti guys would offer us 40. So eventually the Gotti's guys, Charlie Fatico, Danny Fatico, they were sort of kicked to the curb, and Jimmy Burke had all the right contacts to sell this stuff. So that's what we did. Again, we had various sit downs. We really never had any problems or difficulties with the heist. They went off pretty smoothly. I want to say that I didn't know at the time, but Tommy was developing a serious cocaine habit because I didn't do cocaine and I didn't sell cocaine in the 70s. I sold heroin, but I never talked about the heroin. And Foxy never talked about, what he did with John Gotti. We weren't allowed to share inside information with the guys that we were assigned to. What we were allowed to do is talk about the heist. So one particular heist we did was garments. We did shoes. I talked about those. And I got to know Tommy really close and up front. And also I'd go to Robert's Lounge. That was the bar that Jimmy Burke had, only like 20 blocks from my Sinatra club. We'd go there, hang out in the basement. It showed in Goodfellas how they were playing cards. Yes, Tommy was radical and unpredictable. But when it came to doing a heist, he had the balls of a lion. I mean, it was no problem. He'd be out there in the middle of the street waving guns. And talking about guns, every once in a while, I always had a connection to get guns out of the airport. Guys were stealing freight. They'd find guns, and I'd buy a bunch of them. I never used a gun on anybody. I never shot a gun. I had brand new Smith & Wesson guns in my basement. Occasionally, I had some cheap Saturday night specials. I forgot the name of them, but they were cheap. They were $40, $50. But Tommy would always say, "Hey, watch, how much you pay for that Smith & Wesson?" I'd tell him $100 back in the day, brand new in the box. He said, "Okay, give me one." So he'd give me the $100. He said, "How about I trade you a couple of these guns for that?" I go, "No, you got cheap garbage." He had a Raven gun made in Connecticut. They used to make them for like $22. And, he always wanted new guns. I go to him one day, "What are you doing with all these guns?" Then he smirked and laughed. He said, "I take a ride to the 59th Street Bridge. I tossed the gun out into the river." So that means he used it to kill somebody. But he never gave details, okay?
How many times do you think he came for you to get these guns? Because, I
don't know. I lost track a half a dozen times or something,
wow.
And I would tell him, "Be careful. Don't be flashing around with all those guns, that you got." We didn't get really any heat from like say the NYPD in Queens because everybody had a little connection. Like Cataldo had a connection with a detective. If there was something going on, like an investigation, we'd find out about it. So we'd have to cover our tracks and make sure we didn't have any guns loose. Tommy, on the other hand, he was reckless. I mean, he was really reckless. He was really grandiose. I'm telling you, this guy was always dreaming that we were going to do some $5-10 million robbery, which was in the early 70s. Eventually, after we did a bunch of scores, we used to go out at night. He would come to my my house in the summertime. We'd have barbecues. He'd come. All the guys would come there in the yard, sit there. We'd barbecue. We'd have a good time because my wife went to school with him. My wife went to school with Tommy, and then I also knew his wife Angela, the first wife he had. She used to work in a bar, maybe 8 or 10 blocks from where we lived. Actually, she was the character. She would be sporting around with, like a super sports Chevy, and she was always drag racing guys. And she would bet money. They would put up the money, and if she beat them, she'd get the money. Nobody ever beat her, but one time I went to the bar, and I go, Angela, how about we do a little race, like from the bar down about 8 or 10 blocks, and I'm not going to put up any money. She said, no, you got to put up like $100. I go, what are you going to put up? She goes, I'll tell you what. If you beat me with my Super Sport Chevy, I'll give you head. I get out of town. I want to just race you. I don't care about what you want to give. But you got to put up $100. Okay, I'll put up the $100. So I had this Corvette. We went outside in the middle of the street about midnight, had a guy drop a flag, and we took off. By the time I got down to the next light, which was from 93rd Street to 87th Street, where the Sinatra Club was, I had her by half a car. So we went back to the bar. She says, okay, where do you want it? I said, I don't want anything. You see that guy over there? There's a guy over there, an old man. Go give it to him.
Did she do it?
Nah, I didn't care. I just wanted to beat her. Everybody talked about it. We laughed about it. But she was a big, heavy-set girl. And when she worked at the bar, she could put champagne glasses on her boobies and walk around with these glasses. So we always had funny stories. But Tommy got away from her. But I guess, every once in a while they'd hang out with her. She wasn't very attractive. She was at least 40, 50 pounds over. And then, Tommy always had other girlfriends. Of course, when we went out nightclubbing, we'd see him for a while. Then he would disappear because he wasn't really interested in drinking. He was more interested in sniffing coke. Mm. So by the 70s, when we did the silver robbery, he was pretty radical. He was paranoid. And when he sold his stuff to Jimmy, he got about $2,000 a bag. And I said to Tommy, hey, you're not getting the right price. How about I give you $2,900 a bag? How can you give me $2,900 a bag? Because I can sell it for more. I got a direct connection with a silver coin dealer. And so I went to the coin dealer and I said to him, hey, because the price was fluctuating pretty radically in those days. How do I keep the $2,900? How do I keep the base of that, the lowest price? How can I get more money for this? You can get up to $3,900 for a bag. He said, well, do I have to buy it every day off? No, he said, you can make a verbal commitment. I go, how do you do that? He said, you tell me that you want to sell 10 bags for $3,900 and I'll write it down. Whether the price goes beyond that or it drops lower, you're locked in for $3,900 a bag. So I went back and told Tommy, I'll give you $3,500 a bag. He said, that's impossible. Jimmy's giving me the highest price, $29. It's not the highest price. I've already got up to $4,000 a bag. He said, well, give me $4,000. No, I said, the market fluctuates. He said, all right, I'll sell you 5 bags. So he sold me 5 bags. I took them to the coin dealer. And I made $500 a bag. I made $2,500 buying them off him. Of course, Jimmy wasn't happy when he heard that I bought them. And of course, Dominic, he wasn't too happy because I wasn't selling my silver to Dominic because he wanted to pay the same price that Foxy got from Gotti, which was $2,000 a bag. They were trying to fix the price. They were illegally price fixing on us.
They were robbing you after you robbed it.
Yeah. But Tommy was okay. He was reckless. He didn't care. Occasionally, he'd be out all night, drunk, high. I remember one time I said to Foxy, yeah, we're supposed to be clocking a score. We got to clock this silver robbery, this truck. Where is he? He said, I think I know where he is. So I said, where? He said, it's in Brooklyn. Where? He said, we got to go where there's a boat. Paulie Vario has a boat. I said, what is he doing in the boat? He's hanging out with the girl. So we go to the boat, and the boat's name was the Pink Pussycat. And we knock on the side door. He comes staggering out. Come on, we're supposed to go work. I was very punctual about clocking robberies that we were doing. He gets in the car. We're driving. I said, what were you doing there? You were stoned, right? You were hanging out? No, no, no. He said, I had a date with this actress. I said, what actress? A popular actress. Her name is Connie Stevens. I go, really? She was a pretty blonde girl who was from Brooklyn, and she got hooked up with mob guys, and she met Tommy. And of course, he had a thing with her for a while. But I go, we gotta show up when we make an appointment to go clock a piece of work. And he didn't have any patience for it, because you'd have to wait. You'd have to sit there and wait for hours, write down what time the truck left the terminal, what time the truck got to where it was delivering, because it was very, very predictable truck delivering silver every week. But eventually we figured it all out, and we did the heist, and we made a score. So that was one of the biggest scores we made. And then Tommy, occasionally we'd veer away. He'd be stoned. We didn't see him. But I think his personality was of radical behavior, radical. And he always wanted to prove to Paulie and Jimmy that he was a tough guy by killing people. He wasn't a fighter. We would go out, and if we got into a fight in the bar, we had to cover him because he was a skinny guy. He was tall, but he wasn't a physical guy. People thought he was a big, powerful, tough guy. No, he was a tough guy when he had the gun. Occasionally, I'd go to Henry's place on Queens Boulevard called The Suite, and that's where they killed Billy Batts. But I never knew about the people he was killing. I wasn't allowed to know, just like Cataldo. He wouldn't tell me who he was killing. He might, sort of mention it.
Right. And see, even though you weren't involved, or even he didn't mention it to you, let's talk about even with this one, let's talk about the Billy Batts murder. I mean, from after the life, you watched Goodfellas and you were around Tommy. So when you put two and two together, what do you think happened in your opinion? It's not true. It's not like we're saying, okay, this is what happened. But what do you think when you put this together?
Well, the confidence I got while I was in prison, remember, Tommy killed Foxy December of 74. When I went and spent a few months with Dave Icavetti, and I told him I wanted to kill Tommy for killing my best friend, he gave me information because he was a Gambino guy. He said, look, his time's going to come. I said, I don't want to know the details, but did he do some stuff against the family? Yeah, he did. Icavetti told me, and he's going to pay the price. But for you haven't done a murder. You don't need to do a murder. That's only going to get you deeper in trouble. Plus, if you want to get made, then you have to report to somebody and they own you. And when I spoke with Icavetti about that, that's the reason I did not want to go forward in the mob, because they begin to own you. As it was, Gotti tried to use leverage on me, but he couldn't get away with Cataldo. He had no authority over me. Neither did Messina, any of those guys. I had sit-downs with Lucchese's. I had sit-down with Bonanos. Dominic was always behind me 100%, and they couldn't get away with anything.
No, not at all. Yeah.
That's the way it was back then.
Yeah. So going into like this whole, we'll talk about some of the hits and stuff that are known to the public that Tommy had done. And you tell me what you think. So there was one instance where Henry Hill and Tommy, they were walking, and there was a civilian that was just walking. It had nothing to do with anybody. And Tommy had a new gun, and he's like, hey, Henry, and look at this. And he shot the guy. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, that's how vicious and unpredictable he was. He was a treacherous guy. He just wanted to kill people. I think his motive was he had a sense of power. Some of the other guys I met in the mob that were hitmen, like Cataldo, he also had this sense of power that he could take somebody's life. I didn't need that sense of power. That was not who I was. I'd rather have a fight with a guy, old-fashioned, backyard fight. And all the fights I ever had in my life, I think I won all of them but one or two. And the guy that almost got me wound up getting killed by the police, a guy named Carmine Detail. right around the time that Tommy was coming out of jail, he would come visit me at my Corvette shop. And yeah, I met a lot of crazy guys. Tommy came out and he said to me, "Well, boss, we got a big score." And he was in the halfway house with Jimmy. I go, "What's the score?" He started to tell me about, the Lufthansa heist, which was in September or October. And he said, "Hey, loan me a couple of $100. I might have loaned him a couple of $100. He knew I was I was a drug dealer. So I was making a bunch of money. And I had a secret apartment. He came to the secret apartment because right across the street from my apartment was this little girlfriend called Cookie DeVito. And Cookie DeVito had a child with Tommy. A lot of people didn't know that. So she only lived right across the street. Occasionally we'd hang out. I don't remember him sniffing coke. I really don't. He wasn't much of a drinker. But I told him flat out I wasn't interested in doing any more heists. I had moved on. He saw I had a Corvette shop. I had a couple of jewelry stores. I was making money. I didn't need to do that heist. Never again thinking that it was going to be millions.
Yeah, I mean, you could have been around in the Lufthansa eyes. That would have been something, man. That's insane. But I mean, he approached you and he told you about it, that him and Jimmy were working on it while they were in that halfway house planning it out. But you know what? You told him I got some other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And even at that time, which we'll get into his demise ultimately, but that was after he had taken out Foxy and stuff. So I mean, that was your your close friend. So I mean, that kind of, I'm sure that factored in on why you didn't want to.
Oh yeah, I just didn't want anything to do with him. I was in Lewisburg in January of '75. February, I should say. It was a couple of months after Foxy had been killed, and Tommy came through there because if you were doing time in Atlanta, the only way they would get you to Atlanta, you'd get on a bus in New York, you'd go to Lewisburg for the night, stay over in a special block. Then they would pick you up in the morning, take you on bus, and they would take you to Atlanta. Well, I remember him being in that block, A block, I think it was, and I went to see him, and I had to make believe, I was still friends with him, but I already knew Angelo was also there. Angelo knew that he killed Foxy, and he told me, warned me, don't do anything to that guy. And at that time, I was seething. I really would, if I had my choice, I would have got my hands on him. I would have choked him right in that prison. But, months and months went by, and finally in the summer of '75, I got to talk with Ike Avetti, and he totally talked me out of it.
Yeah.
He said, he's going to get his. Don't worry about it. He knew more. He knew more what Tommy did.
Yeah. And I mean, once we get towards the end, we'll talk about his demise and the different theories and stuff that are out there. But just to go into a little bit more about the hits that were out there, like the the Billy Bats, I'll go over it just briefly because a lot of people are familiar with it. But Billy Bats was, I believe, a made man in the Gambino family, and he got out of prison. They had a party for him, and I guess Tommy was there, and he made a comment to Tommy that Tommy didn't like, and so Tommy went back to his table and he told Henry Hill, I believe Jimmy Burke as well. He said, "I'm going to kill that motherfucker." And then I don't think he did it that night, but a few weeks later or something, they went and did that. They set him up, they beat him up, and they thought they beat him to death. They put him in the trunk of a car, and they drive off. And after that, I mean, they start hearing knocking on the back of the trunk, and they're like, "Oh shit, he ain't dead." So then they beat him up, and then they kill him. They ultimately kill him, and they bury him.
I think Scorsese sensationalized the scene about him being in the trunk, and they put a little humor in it. Actually, Scorsese's mother played Tommy's mother in the movie.
Really? Damn, I didn't even know that.
He went back to the house. He said, "Ma, I need a knife." "What are you going to do with the knife?" "Oh, we're going to go hunting. We got a deer. I got to cut the foot off or something, like that." So they softened it. They tried to put a little humor to the murder. In the meantime, I guess that Bats guy was in the trunk of the car. By the time they got upstate, they realized he wasn't dead. And then Henry, I think Henry told me in private that he actually threw up when they took the body out of the car to bury it.
Damn. I think they had to dig Billy's grave two different times. Like
Right.
they buried him one time, and then they dug it
Right.
up,
Right.
and then moved it again, and then again. It's like because they buried him underneath that Robert's Lounge, I think it was too, at one point, and they
I don't
I
know
don't
how many times they moved the body, but it was pretty bizarre that they buried him. I guess it was Jimmy Burke's friend who had a place upstate New York. They had to go pick it up when the property was sold. Then they had to bring it back to Queens. I don't know. It sounded
Mhm.
like they went through a lot of a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, and the next one I'll segue into is the Michael Spider, the local kid that Tommy had shot and killed. Even in that movie, they portrayed him killing him. But from what I researched, I mean, this was just a local kid. He had no affiliation at all. I don't think not even a hang around or anything. I mean, he was just there to serve them drinks. And Tommy shot him in the leg the first time. The guy
Right.
comes back in a cast the next week, and then I think he tells Tommy to go fuck himself or something, and then Tommy shoots him, kills him, and then
Right.
Jimmy's like, "You're gonna dig the fucking hole," He's
Yeah.
like all pissed off or something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. He
think,
was he was impetuous, um, impulsive guy. That's the way he was. He didn't have a mindset that was organized. Like when I met him, I tried to give him a heads up on the type of people that I studied. He said, why would you want to tell me about the type of people? I said, there's basically three types of people in this world, whether you're legally or illegally involved in a business. One is the initiator, a guy who comes up with the idea. And he tries to find another person to help him go forward with the idea, who would be called a processor. And then there's got to be a mention of how they complete the project, whatever it was, legal or illegal. And that would be called a completer. So you're not a processor or a completer, and you don't put a lot of thought into initiating some idea for a heist. So I got to watch over you. I got to be a little bit of the initiator, the processor, and certainly the completer. Otherwise, we're going to fail at any score we did. And that's the way I treated him. Foxy got it. He got it. He was both initiator and a processor, and he was a lot like me. We could complete the heist. And Tommy would shake his head. I don't want to hear this psychobabble. He didn't want to hear that. I go, well, that's the way you sort of you analyze people.
yeah, I mean, and he didn't like that. I mean, he didn't
No.
really want to hear that. But at that point, you could just tell, like, he was just something way different than the
Yeah,
three categories of people
yeah.
that you're trying to
And,
initiate and tell them
and he
about.
was dangerous. The guy was really dangerous.
Yeah, another murder he participated in was, I believe, Parnell Edwards. Are you familiar with that guy? And
I guess it was the black guy.
yes, and Polyvario gave the orders because the man slept in late for him.
Yeah, he hung around. The way we heard the story, he was supposed to, dispose of the van they used on the heist. I think he was supposed to bring it to Charles Caniglia to crush it up. But whether he was drinking or got involved with a girl, he didn't complete that part of the assignment. And I guess Paulie wanted to do away with him. So from what we heard, Tommy went over there and killed him.
Damn. I mean, yeah, and that's another scene again that's in the movie as well. But I mean, I did the research to like see what that was portrayed in real life. But I
Right.
guess it seemed to line up with all of it and Henry's book and everything. I mean, that's what the whole thing's based off of. So this is kind of like Henry's perspective because I mean they were in the same crew with each other. So
After
they're
they did the heist, there was so many FBI agents. I lived on 88th Street and 188th Street and 95th Avenue. On 101st Avenue, just a few blocks away, and 87th Street, they were hanging out in the bar there. Jimmy had a bar, another bar.
yeah.
All the guys from Goodfellas were hanging out there, and the feds were all over the place. They were all over looking for information, And there was a guy that was involved with them on the heist. I had the deli at the time. They would all come in for sandwiches. This guy, Paulie, came in. He had an accent. I guess he was from Italy. He had come from Italy. And he'd order a certain type of sandwich. But I remember him. He was a tall guy, muscular. And then maybe around after a month or so after he did the heist, they found him hanging in a storage locker or in a truck in the middle of the winter. So they killed
Damn.
him. So Jimmy was killing people left and right. I don't know how many he killed, but
And that could have been you if you would have accepted that heist. Who knows?
I
If
don't
you,
know. Yeah,
I mean, you really don't know. You may have dodged a big bullet by
yeah,
not taking that on because they killed a lot. I don't know if it was Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy, he was doing it, but I don't know if he had Tommy helping him out and taking all these, these people out.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how it was portrayed or even in history, but I didn't find anything on that. But
Yeah. And I knew Jimmy's children.
oh, you did?
Frankie Burke, he was young. He stole cars from me in the late 70s, maybe a year or two, three before the heist. And I knew Kathy Burke. She worked in a diner.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the whole family. And the wife, Mickey, would meet my wife while I was in prison. We were in New York City in the federal holding facility. My wife would meet Mickey, his wife, and get a box of provisions like pepperoni, salamis, and everything, right? And then they would smuggle it into the prison by giving it to one of the guards. So we were pretty close. We knew each other, you know. Mickey
Yeah.
was a nice woman. She put up with Johnny, she put up with Jimmy Burke's antics, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, his son was involved in it in life. Not much, right? But I mean, he was somewhat involved in criminal life.
Oh, he was a good car thief.
Car thief. Yeah.
Really good car thief. Oh, yeah, he'd get me 2-3 cars a night.
Damn.
Yeah, he was good. Him and Goldie, yeah, they were all good car thieves because I needed 5, 6, 7, 8 cars a night when I had the chop shop.
Yeah. So with so the ultimate demise, in your opinion, you think that after Tommy, why did Tommy kill Foxy? Let's talk about that first.
Well, the way I heard it, you know, there's all kinds of rumors. I talked to the sister when I was doing the Sinatra movie. Patricia, she said he didn't lay a hand on her. People created these phony rumors that he beat up Foxy's sister. No, Foxy just didn't want Patricia with Tommy. And he told him right out, go find somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But he insisted upon pursuing Patricia. Now, what Patricia's move was, I don't know. She probably liked him because he had a great personality on the outside, you know, beside being sick and demented and vicious on the inside. I think Foxy told him, stay away from my sister. Maybe he even threatened them. The way I heard it, somebody went to Foxy's apartment. Foxy opened the door and he was shot a couple of times and left there. And that was it.
Yeah.
Now, who Tommy told, I don't know. That was December of 74. And by a week after it happened, I knew about it through Angelo because we were all in Lewisburg when that happened.
Ruggiero.
Yeah, Angelo Ruggiero. Yeah, sure.
And just to add a little bit more to that, from what I researched too, with when Tommy went, from what I read was that Tommy went to Foxy's house. They had their arguing battle, and then I think Foxy punched him in the face and knocked him right to the ground, is what was said. And then Tommy was laying on the ground and shot him.
I don't really know the details. All I know is he was killed in his apartment, and we used to hang out in the apartment there. And there was a little story in the Long Island paper about a guy that was. They described Foxy as having association with elements of organized crime, and in the paper they described him as being rakish. Was the word they used? Rakish.
What's that mean?
That means sort of like, you know, rough around the edges, sort of a, you know, criminal type like that, you know, street smart guy. And It was interesting how my wife saved the article out of the Long Island Press, Long Island Press newspaper. And I had it for years. And then one day I just couldn't look at it anymore. I just disposed of it, you know.
Yeah. So let's see. So now after Foxy had died, Tommy was killed. How many years after?
Well, Foxy was killed December of 74. They did the heist, the Lufthansa heist, December of 78. But I think within a couple of weeks, he got whacked somewhere around January 79.
So I mean, it was quite a few years after, like 3 or 4 or 5
Yeah,
overall. Yeah,
yeah.
and I mean, let's talk about what you heard and what your knowledge was with the death around Tommy, like with Angelo, Dave Icovetti, and Gotti. Them saying that he was going to get his, and then we'll go into the other
Well, Angelo,
theories.
Angelo instructed me, do not touch him when you go home, because we were all together in the August of '74 period, and I was going home, but Tommy was still in federal custody, and then Angelo warned me, look, don't touch Tommy. John's orders. He is going to take care of Tommy, and that's the last I heard from Angelo and John about Tommy,
And
and
then
that was in '75. So they
and,
waited a couple years.
and even Dave Icovetti, you said senior, had mentioned that he was going to get his, didn't he?
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, that you really just put two and two together, and that's from your perspective. That's sounds like what could have happened, and even with other people as well. That in history books, news articles. I mean, that's what people put together. They also put together that. Okay, so it's from what I read was that Henry recalled that Jimmy came out of the phone booth crying the day that Tommy was killed.
Right.
He said they killed Tommy for killing Billy Bats.
Yeah.
So he was another Gambino guy. So that would be more reason why he killed two Gambino
Sure.
guys. So
Yeah.
I mean that puts two and two against them. So the odds are not in his favor. So after that, there was a ceremony or they were going to make him basically Tommy.
Yeah.
They said
So
that they're going to make him, and Jimmy had called and he said he just wanted to hear the good news. Hey, did he get made? And they said no, he was actually killed for killing Foxy and then Billy Bats.
but you got to realize I was um, moving away from the life by the time they did the Lufthansa heist. I was moving away from crime. I was still dealing drugs, but I was about ready to quit all the crime and buy some property and go upstate New York about that time. So I didn't really want to hear much.
No.
I wasn't interested in the rumors, the gossip, none of that.
Yeah, and I will just bring up the other theories just briefly. Like there was another one that they said John Gotti had pulled the trigger himself. Like they got him. They said that they were going to make him, and then John Gotti showed up to the meeting and shot him in the back of the head.
I don't know where that rumor came from. Don't forget that was January '79. I don't know if Sammy the Bull, who was the closest guy to Gotti, ever released any information. I don't even know if Sammy the Bull was in close relationship with Gotti in '79. I think he came on around '82. When I was leaving, I think that's when, Sammy developed a relationship with Gotti. So he wasn't even around the Gambinos in '79, I don't think. So there was very little information. I don't think they ever heard much about Gotti talking about killing Tommy.
Yeah. The next one I'll bring up is Tommy was tortured to death by Thomas Agro, who you had talked about, Tommy Agro, because it was said that Tommy Agro had killed Tommy's brother Anthony.
Right.
So you recall that murder?
Oh no, I mean it was just rumor.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something I talked about in those days, in the late '70s murder. Really, I mean it was rumor, and I was introduced to Agro by Cataldo,
right?
And Tommy and I would go to his little restaurant bar called Sebastian's. We would go there. So, but I didn't see him as a terribly significant, tough guy, murderer. He was a little bit of a guy, I guess.
Yeah.
I did know a guy that he was abusing, a guy named Joe Dogs who wrote a book. I knew him.
Joe Dogs.
Joe Dogs, yeah, you could look him up. And
Okay.
he flipped while he went undercover against a bunch of guys, against Agro for beating him up. And eventually he went in the program. But a lot of that stuff was rumor, and I wasn't interested in rumors. I didn't care. I was never a rumor guy.
Well, I think this one even sounds even more far-fetched. They said that Paulie was having an affair with Henry Hill's wife, and he was pissed that when Tommy assaulted her and tried to rape her. What do you think?
I have no knowledge of that possibility at all.
I know. I mean, it's just. I mean, there. It seems like there was. You have Henry Hill, and then
Yeah.
you got Paulie, and then Tommy, or Tom. So all with Henry's wife. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
I don't understand that whole aspect either.
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I never got involved with wise guys' wives or
No.
sisters. I didn't do it. I just stayed away from it.
I
That
mean,
was
you
an
seen what
easy way to get killed.
Yeah, I mean, you seen what happened.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we covered a lot with Tommy. I mean, do you have any other final thoughts or anything you want before we wrap up to mention about?
No, but I was there when I talk about my relationship with guys like Cataldo or Jackie Donnelly or Tommy DeSimone. I talk about my upfront one-on-one relationships with them. I was there with them talking, committing crimes. So my stuff is not rumors. People will put little lines up. Oh, that's a rumor. That guy was nowhere. Nobody knew him. And the fact is that there is people out there who have information. I see little postings. I go, wow. How did somebody remember that the Sinatra Club was on 87th Street and Atlantic Avenue 50 years ago? People remember this stuff.
No,
Or they do research and then, they sort of in a strange way regurgitate the rumors.
Yeah.
Which, sounds like a bunch of crap to me. I mean, I had to straighten out an idea when I said something about a Tootie guy.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody thought I was talking about Tootie Francis. No, I was talking about a different guy named Tootie Laguette. Which I don't even know how to spell his name.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Close enough.
You got to correct some of the stories.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what our whole show is. I hope everyone enjoyed this. I mean, look at our new background. I changed it up a little bit for this episode, and all of them really just to have a better template. A lifetime Mafia tales. We got the New York background in there, and yeah. So I mean, we're gonna come up with more good stories. We'll be talking about episode number 4, the next Hitman, and then we're just going to keep going with it. I mean, where there's 10 that we for sure want to cover, but eventually we'll cover all the guys that Sal was around because
we got to do Charles Caniglia.
Yep, I just finished that Tony D. Stefano's book.
Did you finish the book?
Oh yeah, it was good. It was really good. So maybe we could do Charles Caniglia next. You want to do that?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, well, everyone listening, that's you heard it first. We're gonna do that one next. So, the things that I'll promote now is if you want to go to our website, it's in the video description. You can check out the cards that were played in the Sinatra Club, the 1972 playing cards that were played by Sal, John Gotti, Tommy DeSimone, Jimmy Burke. I mean, just a number of guys. You can check it out. You can also get Sal's book on there, autographed, the Sinatra Club. And then, of course, please subscribe to our Patreon if you want exclusive content and to chat back and forth with Sal and just really be able to be part of a community of Mafia fans and want to know history. And just, it's just a nice little group to be a part of. So, Sal, you got anything else you want to talk about?
No. Tell everybody thanks for listening. Be fun.
Okay. Well,
to see the comments.
Yeah, and again, Sal's going to comment back to whoever. That's what I'll encourage. Comments. Anybody that wants to comment and ask a really good question, feel free to do it because Sal's going to respond to whoever has really good questions. So feel free to comment. We really like to engage with our audience, and that's just the whole thing. We really want to build relationships with everyone and have everyone follow along and continue to provide questions, provide new topics for us, and just anything they want us to go into, we'll cover. And so, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got for everyone today.
All
Sal,
right.
That's another good one. Episode number 3 on these Hitman.
Till next time.
That wraps up the third Hitman Sal was pretty close with, Tommy DeSimone. Next week's episode will be about the fourth Hitman that Sal was very close with. A lot of people associate his name with being a brutal serial killer, Charles Carniglia. He was in Gotti's crew. Please comment any key takeaways that you got from this interview. Me and Sal love to hear back. We enjoyed the live that we did last week, interacting with everyone, bringing people on. Please stay tuned to that. Me and him are going to be doing more of those because those are really fun and enjoyable, really interacting with everyone. Please share this interview with anyone anyone that you think will enjoy this type of content. Also, please don't forget to hit subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to get more of our videos. We got a whole playlist at the end that I'll attach of all of our other episodes that we've done in the past. It'll be called The Lifetime Mafia Tales. If anybody wants to get any autographed material from Sal, we got that in the video description below. You can find his Sinatra Club book on there. Also, you can find the Sinatra Club playing cards. Those cards were played with by John Gotti, Sal, and many other mobsters. The very last thing that I'll bring up is please subscribe to our Patreon channel. Be a part of a private community of people that really enjoy Mafia content. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. We got plenty more coming.